Hey, what's up? This is Joe. I'm in Del Rio, Texas, basically about a stone's throw from the Mexico border, hanging out under this mesquite tree. Found this campground for $6 a night, which is, you know, pretty good. Anyway, I wanted to make this video to share with you the chronicle of the journey that I took through the state of Utah going south. Basically, as a state, Utah has almost anything you could ask for. It's got mountains, pine forest, desert, absolutely amazing sandstone rock formations, and there's just, for somebody that loves the outdoors, you could never get bored in a state like Utah. Unfortunately, I really didn't have a lot of time to really enjoy it. They were calling for some pretty heavy weather. When you have heavy rains in the desert, there's a tendency to get flash floods. Unfortunately, I had to get the hell out of Dodge as quickly as possible. Additionally, my boss, Alan, at Memphis Shades is flying me out from South Texas to Florida to work Biketoberfest. So that's coming up soon if anybody wants to come by. And in spite of all the shitty weather and everything, I just had an absolute blast riding through the state of Utah. It's truly just you know, one of the most beautiful places on earth, I think. So with that being said, if you enjoy this video, please hit like and subscribe. And as usual, I've included an optional donate link in the drop box if you'd like to contribute to this project. Additionally, check me out on Instagram. I'm doing 100 reels in 100 days. I've been pretty consistent up to this point. I think today was day 52. So if you're interested, be sure to check that out. It's at dirtymotorcyclevagabond. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the road. After a stormy night in northeast Utah, I found myself riding south through the Wasatch National Forest towards Moab. I'd had just about enough of being wet and cold at this point, and being in the dry deserts and canyons seemed like a nice reprieve from the misery I'd endured thus far. At least, that's what I hoped it would be. I'd barely started this operation when all of a sudden I was surrounded by a sea of terrifying, bloodthirsty sheep. As I continued to shed altitude, the landscape changed dramatically from lush pine forest to barren high desert. Boy, this is a change of pace. Now I'm getting into kind of the foothills, into the high desert out here. It's getting a little more barren, a little more sparse. A lot of people are surprised at how few miles I do in a day, but when you've been on the road as long as I have, there's a lot to be said for taking it easy and enjoying the ride. I generally find the best medicine is to find a good spot to work on the computer and cook up some delicious slabs of meat over a fire. With this in mind, I headed to a canyon located just outside the tiny village of Helper. Well, I'm out here in the beautiful canyonlands of Utah, and I'm getting ready to fire up my Otzi Spark portable grill. This company was really good about sending me this grill and a bunch of other things. I'm gonna gather up some little twigs and things like that I can use as fuel for this, and go ahead and show it to you. Old Spanish homework, completed of course. Also, the company gave me these, some of these little fire starters. And got a cool little, presumably magnesium fire starter. Fortunately, the wind's coming from this direction and is able to sort of get funneled into this plate and sort of swoosh around. That's the only consideration about this design that I see, is getting adequate airflow. So if you get one of these, I highly recommend getting one of these portable bellows as well. Plus, if you're ever starting a campfire, it just makes it so much easier. So I picked up this beautiful certified Angus ribeye from a little rinky-dink grocery store up there. $7 for 0.75 pounds. I was pretty happy about that. Oh man, look at the beautiful sear we got on that side. Just a couple more seconds. Pretty remarkable. With just a small amount of firewood, this thing conducts heat like nobody's business. As I was eating my dinner, an old timer pulled up in a pickup truck and told me there was a group getting ready to do some rock climbing nearby. When I asked if it was okay to camp here, he replied, "Man, this is Utah. You can camp wherever the hell you want." I headed 100 yards down the canyon to watch the climbing. Watching other people rock climb is kind of like watching someone else have sex. It may be fun for a while, but is a poor substitute for the real thing. And while I'm not much of a crazy rock climber, seeing this boulder sure got me in the mood. I don't know if this was an old piece of a railroad, maybe some sort of a mine. This is, you know, a person that loves the outdoors could never get bored in Utah. It's got to be railroad. But where's the rest of the railroad? Unless the road was the railroad. I'm looking for a mine shaft because I think this was in some way part of an old mine. Remnants of a coal mine. Trying to watch where I step around here. Here we can see the old remnants of some railroad tracks buried in what is now the road. And there's a big ass structure over there. I don't know what that was. So unfortunately there's no trespassing. The guy over there was telling me this used to all be free public land. And then they put all these fences and signs up. So you really don't have access to a lot of this stuff. There's a ghost town up that way. Unfortunately, you can't get to it. Yeah, it looks a little sketchy. Leaving my idyllic spot in the canyon, I headed to the flat desert of Green River. Green River was a place that had been on my radar for quite some time, mostly because I'm a Creedence Clearwater Revival fan. After doing some research on the famous song, I learned it's not about Green River, Utah, or in fact any actual Green River, but instead a figment of John Fogerty's imagination. Nevertheless, the song was playing in my head on repeat as I rode into town. One of the things that stood out to me about Green River was the unbelievable amount of people who approached me to compliment me on my bike. Utah is a land full of motorsports enthusiasts, and a lot of them know a thing or two about motorcycles. The western United States is full of vast expanses of public land where a person is free to camp, hunt, and fish wherever he likes. I bummed a shower ticket at the truck stop, got some supplies from the grocery store, and headed into the desert. Well, this looks like about as good as I'm going to find out here. No trees to speak of, but it is in the middle of the desert, so what are you going to do? Basically, I found a little gully over that way, and I'm just going to, since I don't have any shade, get my bike in there and set up kind of a makeshift shelter where I can do some cooking, drink some water, work on the computer, and then a little later think about setting up an actual camp. So yeah, this kind of gully sort of gets me out of the view of the road. The ground is pretty soft. I wouldn't typically stay in a place like this unless I was pretty confident in the weather. Otherwise, this looks like it's prone to flash floods. People say they like the desert because it's clean. I call bullshit. If you just look around, this is all dirt. Doesn't look very clean to me. That's actually one of the weird things that people say about the desert is that it's clean. It's certainly, I mean, some of the most dirty camping that I do. The sky is amazing, obviously. And so I've just been sitting under that tarp, getting some work done on the next video. Drinking my water. Ever since I left Montana, the weather's been cold, shitty, rainy. So I've been trying to make as much time as possible so I could get to a more favorable climate like this. When you're on the road, you're putting down a lot of miles. It sort of cuts into your video editing time. I knew I needed to sit down and work on it, and I just needed to find a place. So luckily, I mean, this out here in the desert, I remember doing this last year, just setting up a tarp like that and having it work actually pretty well. This is a technique that a lot of the Arabs used to use when crossing the desert. They would sort of set up a tarp like that and stay under the tarp during the hot part of the day and then travel at night. Moab, Utah is, well, basically that way. That's south. And man, look at that sky. So this was home last night. Ended up being a pretty good spot for me. I think I'm coming down with the cold. It's funny just how quick when you see a spot like this, you don't really see a lot of potential, and then it sort of becomes home. So anyway, next is on to one of my favorite places in the country, Moab, Utah. As soon as you start getting close to Moab, in all likelihood, you'll start saying to yourself, holy shit, look at that. The sandstone formations are a diverse visual treat for the eyes. Once I pulled into town, I ran into a couple coming up from Mexico. We exchanged road stories, and they told me it was possible to get into Arches National Park without a reservation as long as you come after 5 p.m. With a couple hours to kill, I took a spot near the entrance and began to cook a steak out of the view of any passersby. What I didn't understand from my conversation with the Mexico travelers earlier was that although you didn't need a reservation after 5, the $30 entrance fee was still in effect. American presidents Woodrow Wilson and Theodore Roosevelt were instrumental in establishing the national park system and believed access to these parks was a birthright for U.S. citizens and should remain available to everyone, regardless of class or economic status. When I tried to explain this to the lady working the booth, she was unimpressed. I turned back towards a spot I knew from experience was awesome and free. The twisty route seen here takes you through a canyon to Castle Valley and high into the Rocky Mountains. It's nothing short of spectacular, so I'll let these roads speak for themselves. It was here in the mountains outside of Castle Valley that I made camp. I had no cell signal to speak of, but as I learned from checking my weather report in town, heavy rains, thunderstorms, and flash floods were on the way. Soon, I was going to have to keep moving. This storm just got me totally unprepared. I'm 45 minutes away from the nearest town. I'm gonna have to wait under this tarp for a little bit, finish packing up, and hope that this passes over. They're calling for heavy thunderstorms next 3 days. so I'm just gonna have to figure something out. What I figured out was to get the hell out of Dodge as quickly as possible. I've been stuck in the desert before during a flash flood, and it's no fun. As soon as I got a cell signal, what I would have to do is closely examine the weather reports and see if I could find a place that would be spared from any severe storms. Luckily for me, the road to civilization was a totally badass twisty road going further up into the mountains and then back down into the high desert. Once back on the main road, I made a beeline for Cortez, Colorado. Here I had a book and a new chin mount for my GoPro sent to a Walgreens a week earlier. Once I got there, I'd have enough of a cell signal to check the weather and try to formulate a plan. When I got to Cortez, I picked up my stuff and checked the weather. About the only place which appeared to be in the clear for the next few days was Los Alamos, New Mexico. I was still a long damn way from there to be sure, but would use the break-in weather to go as far as Farmington, where I'd rent a cheap hotel room to dry out and get back on the road as early as possible. The Navajo Nation is a massive expanse of desert within the southwestern United States. Aside from some interesting rock formations and a few very small towns, there's little going on out here. I reached Farmington and headed into the ghetto.